Dear viewers, today we have a career diplomat and ambassador to 3 different countries who joined US State Department Foreign Services in 1981 and served as a political officer in Pakistan, chief political officer in Sri Lanka, deputy chief of mission in Botswana, and served as the ambassador in Eritrea. After Eritrea, he served as the US ambassador to Nepal and Uganda. Now he is retired from his foreign services and opened his non-profit organization called Survey Foundation to serve rebuilding Nepal. He is none other than Honorable Scott H. DeLisi. Honorable DeLisi, welcome to Sagarmatha Television.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here today, and I know about your TV station, and I've followed it since I was ambassador.
Right.
Now finally we have a chance to be together, and that's a good thing.
This is your second interview on Sagarmatha Television.
Yeah.
Remember we met in Kathmandu?
Absolutely. But I know we've wanted to do this here in America for a long time.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad we now have the chance.
Yeah, we discuss about that. And most of our viewers don't know about. And would you mind telling my viewers who you are, what you do?
At one time, I was an American diplomat, and I spent 34 years serving the United States of America as a diplomat. Served in a wide array of countries, but much of my time was spent and focused on South Asia, including Nepal. Many years ago, I was the Nepal desk officer in the State Department, and I traveled to Nepal in my first posting when I was in Bombay, and I began to fall in love with your country, with what I have come to think of as our country on many levels. And then I had the honor to serve as ambassador to Nepal. And Nepal particularly captured my heart and my imagination. But I've done many things for the State Department over the years. I was also ambassador in Eritrea, ambassador to Uganda most recently. And I retired in November of last year. And the next day, I went to work for Nepal. And I'm now the executive director of the Survey Foundation, which is a foundation that is dedicated to working in partnership with Nepalis to build a stronger, safer, more resilient nation. So I guess you would say that I'm a person whose life has directed me into service, into serving both my own nation, but perhaps the nation of Nepal as well.
Yeah, you just mentioned about your foundation, and my second question lead to that. What is your foundation means, and what is your role on it?
Well, the foundation was actually created last year before the earthquakes. And you know, Ron, when I was ambassador, one of the things that we focused on so much was disaster risk reduction and preparedness. We all knew that there would be an earthquake, and we knew we needed to find a way to address the challenges associated with it. And the foundation was created while I was still ambassador in Uganda with that idea in mind, the idea of risk reduction and preparedness. When I came on board, though, after I retired, we realized that risk reduction and preparedness in post-earthquake Nepal had to have a broader dimension. That we not only needed to help address the needs of the people in 14 districts, the thousands, millions of people who were affected by the quake, but we also had to continue the effort to prepare for future quakes. And we knew that preparedness and risk reduction was more than just building a strong house or building a strong school. It was about building strong communities and about building a strong nation. So the foundation today is focused, as I say, on partnerships with the Nepali people, with Nepali organizations dedicated to building that stronger, safer, more resilient society. And that includes economic growth, it includes addressing social needs, it's looking at health, it's looking at a wide array of things as we build these partnerships with strong groups on the ground in Nepal. You don't need us to come in and reinvent the wheel. There are many Nepalis who know their country, who know the communities in which they work, and who have the trust of those communities. Those are the people that we seek to partner with. And in doing that, we also hope to bring in the many people in the United States who care about Nepal, but who don't know perhaps how to best direct their resources and their efforts.
We are honored to have you back in Nepal, but you served 3 countries as an ambassador and many other countries as a different diplomatic position. But why did you choose Nepal on your retirement?
I think I alluded to it earlier, Ram. During the course of my career, I served in many countries. I saw compelling need on many levels across the globe. But there are few places that captured my heart the way that Nepal has. You know, the country of Nepal is a beautiful country. And the beauty is very important, and it brings people there, and the adventure and climbing the mountains and exploring all the dimensions of the society. And the rich cultural heritage is also very important, and again, it captures the imagination. But it's the people of Nepal, more than anything else, I think, that truly resonate for those who visit. There's something about the people of your nation. There is a decency and openness, a degree of tolerance within the society, a welcoming nature. There's so much. And I think people, as they meet Nepalis, they say, we want to be part of this. We want to help. We want to engage. So, recognizing there are many things that I could have done in retirement, the fact that I had the opportunity to direct my efforts on behalf of Nepal, it was a no-brainer, as we say. It was a very easy choice for me.
I remember that, you or your foundation were leading, and Suman Timsina, Pursue Nepal, myself, Suresh Sapkota, and Mukesh Singh, all other fellow, we visited to Marathon also.
Right.
And looking at that, you were really focusing on helping Nepal, Nepal rebuilding. How can your foundation contribute to rebuilding Nepal? And what are the project or what are the process already undertaken?
Okay. Well, again, when we talk about rebuilding Nepal, we have to recognize that this is a huge undertaking, and no foundation, like the Sorway Foundation, is going to by itself manage to do the rebuilding of Nepal. This is a task for government, for international partners. It's on a large scale. But the question is, so what can you do on a smaller scale? And I do believe, and in talking to many people in Nepal, there's a sense that that thoughtful projects, smart projects that empower communities, that show people you don't have to wait for government always. You don't have to wait for donors. You can take control of your lives. You can build a better future. You can shape your own destiny. Projects that are catalytic, that are good examples, good models for how we can build for a better future. These are all the sorts of things we're looking at. But so what are we doing so far? And we'll continue this effort as long as we can continue to raise money. It's always a challenge, but we're working on this. We have done an array of things. We have partnered with Mission Rebuild Nepal, which is a Nepali 501c3 charitable organization based in Northern Virginia, and they have an NGO in Nepal as well. And we are building 1,000 transitional shelters in Sindhupalchok, for example. And the Sorway Foundation has contributed to that effort, and we are working in partnership with Mission Rebuild Nepal, not only to tackle that project, but to look beyond at how we can do that model community, that model village concept. And so we're going to work together on that. We've worked with the Empower Nepal Foundation, which is based in my home state of Minnesota, to help fund a medical mission to the Sum Valley, which desperately needed support after the quake, and we've been able to help to provide that. We are working with Mighty Nepal, which many people know, of course, and they say, oh, well, but that's about human trafficking. But there is no one more vulnerable than the young girls and women in the earthquake-affected areas as these predators descend after disaster and seek to lure them into a life that will ultimately end up being a life of sexual bondage. Working together to address these problems. We're working with the Nepal Youth Foundation on a program called Kinship Care to ensure that children who were orphaned in the earthquake or whose parents were so seriously injured that they cannot provide for the family, that the children have an opportunity to stay with family members rather than to go into institutions. We're working, you mentioned Sumana Parshu, and the International Development Institute. Together we're working on a program to encourage inclusive tourism in Nepal, to demonstrate that Nepal is open for business, to encourage economic growth through tourism, but also to develop this niche market of tourism for those who are physically challenged but who can have the opportunity to visit and enjoy Nepal and its tremendous beauties and its rich culture. And in doing that, we not only grow the economy and perhaps open a new tourism market for Nepal, but we also send a message that the 500,000 Nepalis who also face physical challenges, if we can find ways to bring them into society as well and draw upon their skills and their expertise, because they have much to offer also. So these are just examples of the many different things that we are seeking to do. We're looking at business incubators. We're looking at programs with Cornell University that has a partner earthquake recovery project with Nepal up on Pukri Bridge, right between Nuwakot and Rasua.
Right.
And we're looking to see what we can do there to bring, again, a holistic and a novel, a different approach to redevelopment and reconstruction. Again, working consistently with government objectives, but recognizing that government has its role, but I think foundations like ours also have a role to play. And if we can be that catalyst, if we can help to leverage other people's money that's already out there and put it to good work, and if we can be that voice for Nepal, this is important.
You just mentioned about Nepal tourism. Since I am also HPR, called Public Relations Representative for Americas from the Nepal government and Nepal Tourism Board here, how can I help in your in your process, and what can you do to help Nepal tourism?
Well, now that's a good question. I think one of the great challenges that we had when I was ambassador, I can remember bringing groups together, sit around the table in my home, to talk about how we would grow different sectors of the economy, and one of them was tourism. And it is finding the way to market Nepal and to build this awareness and to encourage people to go to Nepal is always a challenge, and especially now after the earthquake. So perhaps you and I can sit down together and strategize on the sort of public relations campaign that will bring that awareness. I think that this trek that we're going to do, we're going to be offering a trek for wounded heroes, both U.S. military veterans and also other folks who have suffered debilitating injuries, but to give them the chance to go to Nepal. And we already know that we've got some of the travel magazines and others very interested in the story. And if we can show this tremendous story of Nepal being open for business, and there is something compelling about giving these individuals the chance to show what they are capable of to the world and to themselves, and to do that against a backdrop of Fishtail Mountain, or up in Solokhumbu, or wherever it may be, and to tell these stories, this matters as well. But I do think a lot of it comes down to finding those right partnerships, getting people engaged, and making them realize that the story of Nepal isn't just a story about earthquakes. It's not a story of a nation that is a victim, it's a story of hope. It's a story of what we can build for the future, and that's a story that we're trying to tell.
Honorable Ambassador, you just mentioned about the warrior, veterans. Through IDI, I'm working with IDI also. I'm one of the member of IDI. So we are trying to bring wounded warrior also to visit Nepal. So what do you suggest to Nepal government or Nepali diaspora that what can be done?
One of the biggest challenges at the moment, and I'm with you because I'm not working, as you know, I'm working on the same project. The challenge is going to be to raise the funding that we need to give these folks the opportunity to travel to Nepal. That is what Sorway is committed to doing. We are a 501c3 charitable foundation. Any donations are tax deductible. I am just about to launch a fundraiser for this Wounded Warrior effort, to send this team to Nepal. Sorway Foundation hopes to raise somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000 so that these veterans, these disabled partners, these heroes, will have a chance to go and experience Nepal and tell Nepal's story in the process. And I've already reached out, and we're talking to various corporate entities with business related to either tourism, to outdoor wear, and a couple of them have expressed at least some interest, and even if it's to donate some apparel, equipment, other things that we can offer as prizes to donors, as we do the fundraiser. So stay tuned. Follow the Soarway Foundation page. Follow us on Facebook. We'll be posting the information about the Wounded Warrior Trek, and I hope that we can find within the diaspora those folks who want to give something back, both to Nepal and to those folks who have defended our own nation, because this is about a partnership between the U.S. and Nepal.
Wow. Yeah, I know where to go now.
Yes, and I will be posting that in the next day or so.
Sure.
I've already created it. We were just waiting for the marathon to end, which was another fundraising effort on behalf of Nepal, to launch this effort specifically for the Wounded Warrior Trek.
Wow.
And that's coming out.
Going back to rebuilding Nepal.
Right.
Nepal has been highly criticized by the international community for the slow process of distributing the materials and rebuilding Nepal or earthquake victim. How would you characterize that process?
I have not been sitting on the ground, so I'm always very hesitant to speak without firsthand knowledge completely. I did have a chance though to meet with the NRA, the National Reconstruction Authority, when I was in Kathmandu in March. I spoke with Mr. Gyawali. I've spoken to a variety of other folks. And let me say this, Ramji. I know how frustrating it is. All of us want to see these folks who have been affected by the earthquake. We want to see them in new homes. We want to see them rebuilding their lives and recreating their communities. We want to see that happen yesterday. That's always true, and I know that. So we're always frustrated when it doesn't move as quickly as we'd like to see. I also recognize how complex this process is, and to do it right, to ensure that the money is spent correctly, to ensure that it is not wasted, that it is not stolen. All of these things do take time. Some folks that I've spoken to actually have suggested to me that Nepal is not that far behind where other countries similarly placed have been in this process. I don't know whether that's fully accurate or not. I know that there is a need and a desire to see this move forward as expeditiously as possible. I know that there are designs in place now. I just reached out to Mr. Gyawali the other day, in fact, to inquire, because we've got some partners, private sector partners, who have a very strong design that I know that they're looking at the NRA. We want to see if that's being included. But while I join everyone in saying we hope that this will move forward quickly and transparently and effectively, and it is important, and Mr. Gyawali and I have talked about the need to make sure that they're telling people what they're doing, the efforts they've made to document all of the homes that were destroyed, to take photos, to know what they're doing, to explain this to people. And they need to tell their story effectively as well. But even as government continues to work on this, I would say to you that this is where partners like the Soarway Foundation, Mission Rebuild Nepal, Cornell University, and others are also working with communities to explore avenues to meet immediate needs, to build transitional shelters, to help accommodate the needs that have to be addressed right now, and we'll continue to do that. I leave it to those who are dealing directly with government to address those issues with government. As I say, I am now a charitable foundation, but we're cognizant of this, and I hope that this will move forward quickly.
You answer my next question saying, whatever the Soarway Foundation is doing in Nepal for rebuilding post earthquake work. But how would you do that? Government is not even able to doing it themselves. So what is your thought on that? What is your idea on it?
Well, again, the challenge is Sorway, when we talk about rebuilding, there are 600,000 homes that need to be rebuilt. We're talking billions of dollars. This is not the role for a foundation like Sorway. What we can do, though, again, is to work on innovative designs. We can work with, there are some communities, for example, who are poised and ready to go the minute the government says, all right, now we're starting to release the funds, which they said they are starting to do, right? And so if we can help them to begin that process, if we are ready with the approved designs, with resources available to help them get the materials they need in and to begin the rebuilding process. We've worked together, for example, with communities. I've watched Cornell looking at Pukri Bridge, where they are creating community labor pools, essentially, that will share labor. A group of households that will come together to facilitate the rebuilding, because the labor costs have gone up considerably in Nepal, right? But if communities provide their own labor, this is going to help tremendously. If we can reuse materials, if we are poised and ready, and we recognize that a grant of 200,000 rupees, this is going to be important to people, but it's not necessarily everything that they're going to need. So we're poised to complement that, to find cost-effective ways of doing it, and that won't be for 600,000 homes. But if we can come up with good models that work well on Pukri Ridge, that work well in Sindhupal Chowk, that work well in Kavre or Gorkha, good models, other communities can draw upon that and build upon this, because government knows that as they move forward, individuals will be building their homes, not government. So we want to help individuals get good information, have good plans, have folks who can give them the technical support and assistance, and to make things happen quickly. Sorway can't do that throughout the entire country, but we can begin that process. And although we can't do everything, no group can. I truly believe that if we can touch 1,000 homes, 1,000 families, 2,000 families, each one is a step forward. If we say, oh, this is too big, we can't do it. Oh, it's too daunting, then nothing ever happens. So you do what you can. You begin where you are and build from there. And that's what we're going to do. And I hope we'll have an impact. I hope we'll make a difference.
Honorable Ambassador, going back to the ambassador term, what was your highest points and lowest point in Nepal during your ambassadorship?
Oh, the highest points. There were so many. I was at 14,000 feet. Then maybe that's the highest. No, on one of our treks up into Solukhumbu. No, I think among the highlights of my tenure there. Let me just say, one of the things that so often gets overlooked as people get caught up in the politics and the drama is the good work, the quiet work, the steady work of development. And the work that we did as the United States of America, I was tremendously proud of. The work that we did in health, in women's health, in maternal and child health, reducing infant mortality, all of these things had a real impact. Work that we did in agriculture. And I saw families, I can still remember, down in the Terai, sitting in a field with female farmers who were growing new crops, high-value crops, with a little bit of help, a little bit of training. And suddenly they said, you know what? We're doing so well. My husband doesn't have to go to work in India this year. He can stay home and we can build this farm together. We can build a future together. These are good things, but two big things stood out for me. One was the opportunity to begin the process that continues to this day, and that we must continue, of earthquake risk reduction and preparedness and mitigation. Knowing that we're going to have challenges ahead, trying to save lives in advance, thinking this through. And this is something that was central to my work when I was in Nepal, and I'm very proud of the work that we did. And I know that we made a difference in this last quake, and I hope we can continue to make a difference for the future through Sorway. I know the U.S. government continues to do this as well. The other thing that we did that I thought was particularly important and that I still talk about often was we created the first Youth Advisory Council for a U.S. embassy, I think almost anywhere in the world. And we began to build partnerships with young people. For in a country where 70% or more of the population was under the age of 30, if we didn't find a way to engage young people, to empower them, to help them to care, to give them the tools that they will need to lead, because they're going to lead. Eventually they will lead.
Sure.
We failed Nepal, we failed everyone. So the partnership with youth was tremendously important. For me, the low point, I think that while we engaged on the political challenges, and there were many, and that was good work, and it was constructive work. And I think we helped to facilitate issues like how did we deal with the former combatants in their cantonments and reintegrating them into society? And we made progress on all of those things. But shortly before I left, when there was the vote on the Constitution, and it failed again. Now, I know we've made progress since then, but I think for me that was a disappointing moment, because we knew how important it was for Nepal to begin to shape its political identity, the role of governance in society. And we knew the failure to reach agreement in May of 2012, shortly before I left, set the process back and made it that much more difficult. And it's hard to build a nation to address economic issues, development issues, earthquake preparedness, if there's not the political stability that allows people to focus on governance rather than on a competition over how to distribute power and build for the future. So that was probably, in some ways, my low point, I would say.
Well, it's widely said that India has biggest influence in Nepal government and politics. Political party or government influenced by them for sure. During your ambassadorship, was there any pressure? US government says one thing, Indian government says another.
I never worried about that, Ramdi. I will tell you honestly, when I arrived in Nepal, I remember we had gone through a period, we'd had about 10 months without an ambassador in country. And it was just a question of my predecessor ambassador, Powell, had been asked to come back to Washington to take on a new job. And so we had to catch up with the process. So when I arrived, I remember people saying, the United States doesn't care about Nepal. You only care about India, and so we essentially had outsourced our foreign policy, our interest in Nepal, to India. That was wrong. I sought to make sure people understood it was wrong. Does India have its views? Of course they do. And we also work with India, we work with China, we work with many countries. But we also care about Nepal. We had our own foreign policy for Nepal. And irrespective of whether or not my Indian colleague and I always agreed, sometimes we didn't, sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we would see things slightly differently, not a huge surprise. We acted in the interests of the United States and our relationship with Nepal. And that's what drove our engagement in Nepal. You're always aware of what your partners around the world and in the region are doing and thinking, and you always try to be respectful of everyone. But even if we disagreed, it never worried me. My job was to represent the United States of America and to advance our interests, and not to worry unduly about either India or China or your other, or Nepal's two very big neighbors. We got to be the third leg of the stool sometimes, I guess.
Ambassador, as you know, the US-Nepal relationship has been over 60 years.
Yes.
And many ups and downs. We have seen. During this process, or looking at as an ambassador, what Nepal has to do to improve a relationship with the US?
That's an interesting question. I'll try to answer it to a degree, Ram, but again, I'm no longer representing the government, and so I hesitate to go too much into these things. But what I would say is it was always important for Nepal to look at its own interests, to define itself in its own terms. I found that so often many perhaps in the political leadership, defined Nepal in terms of India, or they defined Nepal in terms of China, or this very challenging relationship, rather than really sitting and assessing and just saying, where are Nepal's interests? What is our role in the world? It is a role that is beyond just the country of Nepal. You are an actor on a global stage as well. You don't have to do anything special to improve your relationship with the United States other than, again, continue to work together on issues where we have shared values and a shared vision of a future. And I do think there are many commonalities. I think that we believe in the importance of democracy and people's voices being heard, of rights being respected, of allowing all the diverse communities in Nepal to be part of the nation's future and its growth. And we will work with you on all of these things. So for U.S. Nepal, this is not an issue.
Right.
Nepal needs to find its own voice, though, and its own confidence in engaging the world as it moves forward. And I think too often, while I was there, Nepal was both buffeted by the internal political tensions and uncertainty, which made it very hard to define Nepal's role in the world. So I would hope that Nepal will find both that formula for moving forward as a federal democratic republic, how that is going to be structured and what that will look like, and in doing so will then be able to better define its voice and its role both in the region and in the world and in its engagement with its partners.
That since Nepal is in between two giant countries, it's like a sandwich. So how can grow Nepal? Just your wisdom.
Grow Nepal? Well, again, I don't think I've got much wisdom. I don't think I have a particular store of wisdom. I'm always happy to talk with partners, though. Secondly, too often, I heard Nepalis, they'll say to me, "Oh, K. Garnet, what to do, Ambassador? Oh, we're like a yam between two boulders. There's nothing we can do."
Right.
Well, I think that's silly. Yes, you do have challenges. Yes, you have to be conscious of your big neighbors. But you have big neighbors who have also been willing to work with Nepal, who offer tremendous markets for Nepali goods. There are tremendous opportunities. You've got a youthful population, and with youth comes energy and creativity and innovation. There's so many things that can be done. But too many, and I say this with great respect, many of the Nepalis that I worked with in the private sector and in the business community would bemoan the challenges. Corruption's such a problem. Infrastructure, the electricity is bad. Unions, this is so hard. The politicians, if only the donors would do this, if only the government would do that, then we can be successful. We can't wait for donors or government or sorting all this out. There were other Nepalis who looked at the world and said, yes, there are all these challenges. But there are opportunities here, there are opportunities for growth, there are opportunities for business. And they created good business models, whether it was for a regional airline, as one example that comes immediately to mind, in agriculture and other areas. And they said, you know what? Yes, there are those problems, but I've got a good business model, I'm going to pursue it. And they brought the energy and the commitment and the will, and they didn't worry about all the rest of the stuff. They just said, how can we make money? How can we build the future? And they did it. I think we need more of that attitude. We need that commitment, and this is when I was in Nepal in March. There was a workshop or a conference I attended called Inspire Nepal. And that was exactly the message, that Nepal can do this, that Nepalis can do this, and we spend too much time worrying about being a sandwich or a yam, and we don't worry enough about just being a successful country and successful businesses.
Nepal is having really difficult time with the neighbor, balancing neighbor, China and India, or that's just an excuse by the political party using?
I'm going to leave it to the political parties to explain that to the people of Nepal. I'm not on the ground. I'm not following it as closely. At Sorway, we're trying to move we have to always, of course, you have to be aware of the environment in which you work. You have to be aware of political realities. But much as I just said, people can't worry about being a yam or a sandwich. I can't worry about all of that stuff. if we're going to make a difference, if we're going to touch people's lives, if we're going to build that future, that stronger, safer, more resilient nation, then we just have to get out and do it. And we have to work at it and not worry about the rest of it. So I'm not going to. So I'm going to avoid that question a little
Sure,
bit.
sure. Okay, let me go to economic development.
Mhm.
What diaspora community need to do for Nepal to help in economic development of Nepal?
You know, it's up to the diaspora community as to whether they're willing and whether they care enough
If they,
about their nation of birth or their nation where their roots are to be participants.
Mhm.
But I believe that they can be a tremendous influence and have a tremendous impact, bringing not just money. Money's always good, money for development, money, investment in economic growth, investment in business and opportunities in particular. But it's also expertise and the talent that many of the folks who live in the United States, for example, have developed over the years through their opportunities to study in the U.S., to work in the U.S. economy, to see different models for growth and for engagement and different business models, and to be able to bring some of that back to Nepal, to encourage and empower young people, to be mentors, to be entrepreneurs, to invest in Nepal's future. And I think that they can generate a return on their investment. I will be very candid with you. One of the great frustrations for me as an ambassador was in our efforts to engage the diaspora, we found people who voiced a willingness and a desire to help build Nepal, who cared about Nepal. Translating that will and desire into meaningful action, that was the challenge. And I did not see the robust role by the diaspora that I hoped that we might. And I recognize that many Nepalis in the U.S. are still building their future and putting their roots down, and I know that. But there are also many Nepalis in this country who, over the past 50, 60 years, have really become strong, capable, are very engaged, have deep roots in the United States, and who probably could explore those options for building partnerships. And if any of them would like to reach out to the Soarway Foundation and talk to me, I'd be happy to work with them to see what we can do together to build a better future for Nepal.
While you were there was a political crisis in Nepal for sure. But during that time, during that difficult time, as I say, did you do any long-term, for this economic development process in Nepal, or agenda, or any policy?
Long-term economic development and growth was central to what we did in Nepal, and it was reflected throughout, I think, our entire history of engagement in Nepal. And as I mentioned a minute ago, many of these things often get overlooked. Right? Addressing the health of a society is crucial for economic development. You don't grow well if you don't have a healthy population capable of being an active and engaged workforce, right? So, I mean, there was the work we did in health alone was part of economic growth and development. We did a tremendous amount in health. We did so much work in agriculture, including the effort to make the Terai accessible many years ago. Again, this was all part of the long-term American engagement, fighting malaria, opening up the Terai, creating that vast agricultural potential that the Terai has for the country, and we've continued to work there. I mentioned earlier working with families on introduction of different crops, trying to increase the viability. We worked on supply chain issues, doing value added, on tea or on coffee or on beans, trying to help agriculture become a more, not just subsistence agriculture, small scale, but make it a true commercial and viable engagement for the people of Nepal. And we continue, I'm sure, I haven't looked lately at our development program, but I'm sure that agriculture remains central to this. The training that we did, the education that we did for young people to give them the skills, the entrepreneurial skills, to build and grow the economy. On so many levels, we were engaged on economic development and growth because we know that this is critical You could get, even if you get the politics right,
Mm-hmm.
even if the politics are perfect, if people don't have jobs, if they don't have hope for the future, if they don't have food, you've got problems.
Right.
So we know that the politics, the issues of governance and human rights and democracy have to go hand in hand with economic growth, with addressing health issues, addressing education issues. We have had a holistic partnership and engagement. People tend to focus on the political, and that's okay, they can do that. But they should know that our partnership and engagement has gone on for years, and we have spent considerable sums dedicated to building that stronger society. So I'm still doing the same thing. I just do it from a different platform.
Right, right. During your ambassadorship and now, did you find any difference in government now and by then, Nepalese government?
You know, I have not been engaging the government directly for a few years now. I was ambassador in Uganda after I left Nepal, and I was focused on Uganda. And now I'm with the Sorway Foundation. We continue to track the political developments. It still seems, unfortunately, that the political process is still challenged and somewhat unsettled. And we know, of course, that even though the Constitution has been passed, the effort to truly structure now and begin to implement this process of creating a federal democratic republic remains a challenge. And that's going to be consuming. And I know that this is hard work. But equally, it seems that politicians still are caught up in this process of either focusing tremendous energy on either coming to power or staying in power once they get there. And if you end up spending the majority of your time struggling for that end, it doesn't leave a lot of time left over to be thinking about the issues of development, of economic growth, of disaster risk reduction. So it's an ongoing challenge, I think, for those who seek to govern, even very well-intentioned people, to really focus on critical policy issues and follow through with the policy and implement it. When your stay in office might be, a matter of months or a little over a year. We've seen so many governments come and go. This has made it hard, and I think it still is hard, and I think it's still one of the great constraints to making the rapid progress that we would like to see sometimes, and I think that's also why groups that continue to remain engaged, like the Sorway Foundation and many others, we aren't alone in this, but for those of us who are committed to remaining engaged, recognizing that the political winds are going to blow first north, then south, then east, then west, and all over the place, we'll let those political winds blow. We have to remain focused on the work that we are trying to do in partnership with the people of Nepal to build the future that they seek for themselves. And that's what we'll continue to do.
Honorable Ambassador, I don't know if you want to give this answer or not, but I wanted to ask you because since you work for a consular a long time and also 3 countries as an ambassador, Nepali people, they complain about U.S. non-immigrant visa process. Sometimes, visa officer does not even look the file, and we don't get treated fair. Fake applicant get the visa, but real applicant does not. Is there any kind of measure to measure that such a process?
I heard this all the time as ambassador. In every country that I served, just about, anyone who doesn't get a visa is absolutely convinced that the process is terrible and that it was unfair and unkind and all sorts of things. Everyone who gets a visa is very happy. They say, oh, no, they were very kind, this is all good.
Right.
I don't think there's anything that I could say that would necessarily convince someone who didn't get a visa that they got the hearing that they thought they should. And they all think that if only I could talk to the consul, for a little longer, like a half an hour or an hour, perhaps I could convince them. The reality is there's a tremendous volume of people who come through the door of any embassy, any consulate, every day seeking visas. We have a limited number of officers to address these issues. They have a limited amount of time. As with any process, is it perfect? Of course it isn't. But do I believe that these officers work tremendously hard, seek to make good and fair decisions consistent with U.S. law? And again, they have to enforce and reflect what our Congress has told them to do. It's not about making, opening the doors wide and helping everyone to travel, though we seek to facilitate this process. We truly do. It's a hard, hard job. And I know how hard it is. And I believe that our officers truly do care. I think that they truly do work hard at it. And I think that we get good results in the vast majority of cases. Sometimes that's not perfect. It never will be. But I want people to know that this isn't just something that people disregard, that we're callous about it, that we're indifferent. We're not. But they don't, most folks have no idea of the complexity of the process, all the multitude of factors that our officers are required by law to consider, and how carefully they seek to address this to meet both the needs as imposed by Congress, to be respectful to the applicants, to manage a very difficult process well. It's hard. It really is.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I was not thinking that you will answer that since you're retired right now.
I am.
But the process.
But I'm proud. Listen, I'm proud of my people, and I think they really did do their best. And I'd be happy to talk in another setting and more length about the complexities. But I will just say, I understand the criticisms. I understand the frustrations. I understand why people think this and feel that way. I would say that I don't think that that's an accurate reflection of what our system is, but I understand how it's seen that way.
All right, let me go back and your vision, your support to Nepal, and your love. We like to very much thankful, appreciative.
Okay.
So I want you to know that Nepali community would like to help you, and how can diaspora community can help Survey Foundation or your mission in Nepal?
First thing they can do is go to both our website, which is, we're just about to launch a new website. It's a much improved website in the next week or so, and I'm really excited about that. Or go to our Facebook page, we're Soarway, SOARWAY.org. So on Facebook you can find us, on the internet you can find us. I would say to you, yes, donations, supporting us. I can promise you this, the money is going to be spent on Nepal. It's going to be spent well. We have partners on the ground that we trust that are not going to disappear with the money, who are going to spend it effectively, who will spend it with an impact, and we are going to touch lives and make a difference in Nepal. And we're committed to doing this in partnership with so many Nepali groups already. I also would say to you that while your support, your financial support is critical, we can't make a difference without money. And we're a charity. We have to go out and fundraise and hustle these funds every day. And we do that because we care about Nepal. I learned early on, you cannot be embarrassed to ask for help for a cause you believe in, and I believe in Nepal, and I'm willing to fight for Nepal. So we seek that. We seek volunteers. We seek people with expertise who want to contribute perhaps their time, their energy. I need accountants to help us with with the tax filings. We need lawyers at times to help us with visas. We're bringing Sursuta over to do performances. Come to Sursuta's concert. Buy tickets. Reach out to me on our Facebook page or on our website. I answer my emails. I respond to people who post questions. If you seek to partner, if you've got ideas, share them with us, because we're always looking for new approaches. I don't believe we've got the market cornered on wisdom. There's a tremendous knowledge and ability in the Nepali community that we want to tap into. We want to build these partnerships, but we need you to engage. We can't do it alone. We can't.
Many different places by many Nepali organizations says that if they donate that money to government, it will not go to right place, or they have bad experience. Or they talk about other organizations, Red Cross and this and that. the overhead is so high. What do you think that, how do you explain to our viewers that, Sorway Foundation will not use that money as a overhead?
No, I absolutely understand that concern. And here's the challenge. My goal is to keep our overhead, if at all possible, in single digits. Somewhere between 5 and 10%. When you're just starting out, if you've only got $20,000 to play with, your overhead is a bigger percentage of that, because we only have a very small office. I work from my home.
Sure.
I work out of my home. I drive my own car. I've got one cell phone that's Sorway, that we pay for from Sorway, but most everything I'm doing, a lot of it we do out of our own pocket. We don't have a huge staff. But we do need a structure as well. And what we have found is there are many groups that are volunteer groups that have been created, especially after the earthquake. And I applaud those groups. And it's great. And you can say, oh, we're a volunteer group, we're taking nothing. It'll all go to Nepal. But the challenge is that volunteer group, a year from now, probably won't be there. Because people have jobs, and they have work that they have to do. And that volunteer group doesn't have the time and the resources to follow the money and to verify how it's being spent, and so they say, yes, we raise this money, let's give it to the Red Cross. And we don't know where. I mean, please don't, that's not meant as anything against the Red Cross, which is a great organization. Sorway is focused exclusively on Nepal. We are talking all the time and sharing with people where we're spending the money, what projects we're funding. We're going to be putting up information on the results of the projects, the impact that we're going to have. Our goal, and I do see some organizations with overhead 30, 40, 50%. Even as a fledgling organization, our overhead is under 20%. This year, I think we'll have it down to between 10 and 15%. By next year, if we continue to grow, I want to have it under 10%. And the money that we spend on Nepal is going into Nepal, and we know this, and we know our partners on the ground. And again, great respect for government, but we leave it to the big institutional donors and all the rest to do funding with government. We work with the people on the ground. We put the money where it's going to have an impact. And I'm very pleased with the model that we are working so far. I think we are making a difference when we partner with Cornell University and Empower Nepal Foundation and Mission Rebuild Nepal and Youth Found Nepal Youth Foundation and Mighty Nepal, and the list goes on and on. These are folks who are going to have an impact and who I trust, and I think we can make a difference in Nepal. I think we already are, and we're already touching lives. And if at the end of the day I can say, we helped to build 1,000 homes, 1,000 transitional shelters. It sheltered 4,000 or 5,000 people during the monsoon. This is a good thing. If we helped save a few lives with the medical mission to the Soom Valley, even if we saved one life, that's a life that we saved. That's a good thing. If we help 10 kids, 100 kids, 200 kids who were orphaned to stay with families and grow to be productive citizens of Nepal, we're investing in the future. I'm proud of the work we're doing. I want partners. I want your help. We need it. I am constantly asking people for help. It's my new role in life, and I accept that, and we'll keep doing it.
Honorable Ambassador, as I told you, that Sagarmatha Television is the first Nepali television program ever produced and broadcasted outside of Nepal in the Nepalese history, and this has been airing since 1996 and 1997 on MSG Networks, which is DC, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, via direct broadcast and via satellites throughout the United States. And also this program will be available on sagarmathatv.us on the web. Having said that, if you have any thought or any left out to say Nepali community or other community about the Rebuilding Nepal and Sorway Foundation, go ahead and let's do all yours.
Thank you, Ron. I'm sure I've forgotten already to mention certain partners that we're working with, because there's not a day that goes by that we aren't finding new ideas and new approaches and new ways to engage in Nepal. I think the most important thing we can do right now, though, I can't, and we can't always, determine the choices that governments make or the direction they go or how they use the resources. But as a small, nimble, and committed organization, I think we can work in partnership with those who care about Nepal to build a different future and to empower people and to give them a narrative of hope and to change the story of Nepal. That is something that we are committed to doing every day. Every day. I meet someone new, I talk to someone new who's got another idea, and we continue to build this and bring people together in a collaborative process that I hope will bring hope to the people of Nepal, in which we can play a role that we know at the end of the day, the future of Nepal rests in the hands of the people of Nepal. And I hope, though, that the Swarway Foundation, that the diaspora here in America, and many others who care about Nepal will join hands with us to help build a future that people will face with confidence rather than with fear. So please come to www.soarway.org on the web. Visit us on Facebook, SOARWAY. I hope you'll have a little banner trailing below me on the screen.
Sure.
But anyway, Ram, thank you. It's been an honor to be with you today and to be here, to be again on Sagarmatha TV.
Sure.
And I hope that people will join us in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ambassador, for coming to Sagarmatha Television Studio today, taking your time off, a retired person, but you still have love toward Nepal, and it is our honor to have you here. And anything Sagarmatha Television and Nepal Darshan Television can help in your, foundation or your project in Nepal, we love to do so.
I think we're going to be working together, my friend, as we go forward.
Let's love to do that.
Thank you very much.
Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.